Mated to the Lycan King. Chapter 12. Lucian's boots skidded across the blood-spattered stones as he sprinted through the castle doors, Raven cradled against his chest. Her shoulders shook with every contraction, breaths sharp and uneven. The corridor still rang with the echoes of battle cries, and distant torches sputtered in smoky brackets, casting frantic shadows on the walls. Lucian barked for healers, voice raw, but it sounded too small for the size of his terror. "Stay with me," he begged, brushing sweat-plastered hair from Raven's forehead. "I've got you." Raven's fingers dug into the leather of his tunic. "Lucian, breathe," she whispered, as if she were the one comforting him. Another wave hit. She bit back a moan. "The girls are impatient." Kieran burst through the doorway behind them, clutching his ribs where a blade had grazed him earlier. Pain lanced through his chest, but Raven's agony thundered louder in his mind than his own wounds. He slid to a stop beside Lucian. "I can feel everything she feels. Let me help." Lucian nodded, unable to find words. Kieran pressed a palm to Raven's shoulder, sending a gentle breeze of calming energy across her burning skin. It was a pale salve, but Raven managed a shaky breath. They reached the infirmary just as a trio of healers rushed from the side chamber. Isara, the kingdom's senior midwife, flanked by two younger assistants. Ilara's eyes widened at the sight of Raven's limp posture and the crimson streaks down Lucian's battered armor. "Lay her here," Isara commanded, clearing a broad wooden table draped in fresh linens. Lucian obeyed, reluctant to loosen his grip even as Raven was eased onto cushioned padding. Ella barreled into the room next, hair matted and arms scraped, yet determination etched every line of her face. She moved to Raven's opposite side, taking her hand. "You've got this," she murmured. Darius swept into the doorway, scanning the room as if expecting another ambush. Thalos leaned heavily against the frame behind him, one arm in a makeshift sling, eyes trained on Raven with silent worry. Isara examined Raven quickly, then looked up at Lucian. "The contractions are close together. These babies are coming now. Fetch hot water and boiled linens." Lucian opened his mouth, but only a fractured sound escaped. Ella squeezed Raven's hand and shot him a steadying look. "We'll handle the preparations. Stay with her." Raven's back arched with the next contraction. She hissed, clutching Lucian's forearm. "They're strong, Lucian. Strong like you." He knelt beside her head, pressing his forehead to hers. "I'd trade every victory for your peace right now." Ilara's assistants bustled around, lighting extra lamps and laying out polished blades for the cord. Kieran hovered close, breath hitching each time Raven cried out. Every pain echoed in his lungs, dragged across his ribs like claws. He breathed through it, whispering focus back into Raven's mind whenever her gaze blurred. Minutes stretched into aching hours. Outside, the castle quieted, warriors tending wounds and counting the fallen. Inside the infirmary, time beat only to the rhythm of Raven's labored breaths and Lucian's whispered encouragement. "Again," Isara coaxed. Raven pushed, teeth gritted, fingers white-knuckled around Lucian's hand. A wail pierced the air, sharp, indignant, alive. Lucian's breath stopped. Isara lifted a tiny, slick infant, her cry filling the chamber with raw life. A girl, strong lungs. Tears blurred Lucian's vision. He kissed Raven's temple as Isara placed the newborn against Raven's chest. Raven's shaking hands framed the tiny head, damp curls dark against her skin. The baby's cries eased at the sound of her mother's heartbeat. "Liana," Raven whispered, voice cracked but sure. Light born from fire. Lucian brushed a trembling fingertip over his daughter's cheek. "Liana," he echoed, reverence softening his rough whisper. He looked at Raven, eyes shining. "She's perfect." But Isara was already guiding Raven through another contraction. "One more, my queen. Your second daughter waits." Raven closed her eyes, summoning the last reserves of strength. Lucian pressed his lips to her damp brow. "I'm here." Feel my heartbeat. Push with me. Kieran's hands hovered over Raven's knee, a swirl of cool wind easing the fiery sting of exhaustion. Ella whispered reassurances, tears glittering on her lashes. With a final cry torn from deep within, Raven pushed. The second child slid into Ilara's waiting arms, voice softer, but steady. The healer smiled. Another girl. Lucian's heart thundered. Ilara wrapped the infant and placed her into Lucian's arms. He stared, spellbound by the fragile miracle nestled against his blood-streaked chest. Tiny fingers curled around the tip of his thumb. Leora, Raven breathed, tears spilling unashamedly. Little fire of dawn. Lucian repeated the name through a raw sob. Leora. He knelt, positioning the newborn beside her sister on Raven's chest. Liana's fist bumped Leora's shoulder as if greeting her, and both infants quieted, eyes drifting shut. Kieran wiped his face with a trembling hand, laughter breaking through his tears. Ella hugged him sideways, their shared relief palpable. Thalos exhaled against the doorframe, tension easing from his broad shoulders. Darius pulled him gently back to bind the wound more securely, but Thalos shook his head, needing to witness the moment of peace. Ilara checked Raven's pulse, exposure bleeding. Satisfied, she nodded. Both girls are healthy. Queen Raven, you did beautifully. Raven's lids fluttered. Exhaustion weighed heavy, but gratitude lit her in ways no battle victory ever could. She turned to Lucian. Our tiny warriors. Lucian laid a reverent kiss on each soft forehead. I will guard them with my last breath. The air settled. Outside the shuttered windows, dawn painted the edges of clouds with rose-gold light. Within, the glow around the new family felt brighter than any sunrise. Lucian's voice was husky with wonder. Look at them, Raven. They're the future. Liana and Leora. Fire and promise. And love, Raven added, eyes closing in contentment, arms cradling her daughters. Ella reached out, gingerly stroking Liana's tiny knuckles. They already look fierce. Kieran chuckled thickly. Of course, they're our nieces. Lucian's laughter rumbled low, the sound equal parts relief and awe. He brushed stray curls from Raven's damp brow. Thank you for your strength, my queen. Raven breathed deep, letting the weight of the moment sink through her aches. I wasn't alone. I had you. Lucian pressed a soft kiss to her lips, lingering, tasting salt from tears and sweat. Always. Exhaustion finally tugged Raven's eyes closed, but she roused faintly at the hushed murmur outside the infirmary. Hoofbeats, a strange cadence of staff clicking against stone. She frowned, trying to sit up, but Lucian gently urged her to rest. It's all right, he whispered, though his gaze flicked toward the doorway with mild unease. The war might have ended hours ago, but his instincts refused to settle. A soft cough preceded a guard's entrance. He bowed low. Your Majesty, a traveler seeks audience, an elder woman of unusual presence. Lucian's brow furrowed. Now? She claimed she was called by ancestral winds to bless the newborn heirs. Raven's eyes widened. Her wolf stirred, sensing old magic. Let her in, she whispered. Lucian hesitated only a heartbeat before nodding. The guard disappeared, returning moments later with a figure draped in layered robes of earthen hues. Her silver hair cascaded down her back in loose waves, and her eyes, pale as moonlit frost, held centuries of secrets. She carried a slender staff carved with spiraling glyphs that shimmered faintly. Every head bowed instinctively, even Lucian's. Raven tried to rise again, but the shaman lifted a hand. Stay in your strength, Queen. You have walked the path of fire this night. Her voice slipped like water over smooth stone, gentle yet commanding. Thalos, still by the doorway, felt something inside him jolt, an echo of recognition he could not place. His injuries, the fog of pain, Everything fell away as her gaze swept toward him. The shaman stepped forward, staff tapping lightly. I am Isara, of the old ways. The winds carried tales of flame and storm, of new life forged in battle's wake. I come to offer blessing and truth. She stopped before the cot where Raven lay with Liana and Leora upon her chest. Isara's lined face softened with a smile, both maternal and reverent. Two flames of the same hearth, she murmured. Lucian's throat worked. They are Liana and Leora. Isara nodded, tracing a glowing sigil in the air above the infants. The lines shimmered, then melted softly into the girl's skin like fading starlight. Both babies sighed in unison, lashes fluttering. Raven gasped at the warmth coursing through her. What did you do, she whispered. Bound their spirits to the light that will guide them, Isara said. A blessing of protection and a mark of destiny. Ella stepped closer, awe widening her eyes. Destiny? Isara's gaze returned to Raven and Lucian. These daughters carry echoes of ancient power. They will one day share their hearts with two sons yet unborn, twin heirs of another alpha lineage. Together, four will rekindle what was fractured long ago, forging peace across all werewolf and lycan realms. Kieran inhaled sharply. Twin sons? Isara inclined her head. Born under a different sky, yet woven into the same tapestry. Magic recognizes its mirror. A hush descended. Lucian glanced at Raven, searching her eyes for fear or doubt. Instead, he found calm acceptance, woven with the protective fierceness of a mother wolf. Raven pulled her daughters closer. If that is their fate, they will greet it in their own time. Isara smiled. And they will stand upon the shoulders of your love. She lifted her staff and tapped it lightly on the stone floor. The path will not be without shadows, but these flames will endure. Thalos swayed. Isara's eyes flicked to him. In that instant, something luminous bridged the space, silent yet deafening. Thalos's breath stalled. He felt the tug deep in his soul, the awakening of a bond he had believed was not for him. Isara's pupils widened, a flicker of tender surprise crossing her face. Lucian cleared his throat softly. Isara, your words are a gift. We are honored. Isara's attention shifted back to the family. She inclined her head. I will prepare a herbal draft to ease the queen's recovery. Let her rest now. Lucian agreed, but when Isara turned away, Thalos moved forward, ignoring the bolt of pain in his shoulder. Wait. His voice cracked. Isara paused. Thalos faltered, rarely uncertain, but words deserted him. Isara's pale eyes held his, gentle and knowing. Later, she whispered, laying one cool hand over his unbandaged arm. A spark danced beneath his skin at her touch. We both need rest. Thalos wanted to protest, but exhaustion conquered him. He nodded reluctantly, stepping back as Isara glided from the room. Kieran exhaled, tension easing in his shoulders. He turned to Raven and Lucian. Rest now. We'll keep the night watch. Lucian looked ready to argue, then glanced at Raven. She had slumped against the pillows, eyes drooping, though she still cradled the twins. Lucian gathered Liana and Leora into the crook of one arm, then slid onto the cot beside Raven. He tucked her against him, settling their daughters between them as though forming an unbreakable circle. Raven's lips curved in a weary smile. They're beautiful. Lucian stroked the downy hair of Liana, then Leora. They are everything. He kissed Raven's brow. You are everything. A soft knock heralded Ella entering with warm blankets. She and Kieran tucked them around the little family, then slipped into silent vigil at the doorway. Darius took a position outside the infirmary, sword resting against his knee, watchful eyes on the corridor. For the first time since Cedric's shadow had fallen over the kingdom, quiet tenderness filled the air. Liana stirred, tiny fist pressing against Lucian's chest. Leora sighed, nestling closer to Raven's heartbeat. Lucian brushed a tear from Raven's cheek. She looked up at him, whispering, "Thank you for believing in me." Lucian shook his head, voice hushed. "I have always believed in you. Now the world will too." Raven laid her head against his shoulder, exhaustion pulling her toward sleep. Lucian tilted his head back, closing his eyes. In that fragile calm, neither noticed Isara pausing just beyond the door, watching with a softened gaze before slipping into the shadows. Outside, dawn spread across the sky, promising new beginnings. Yet somewhere, beyond the quiet walls, distant winds stirred with whispers of unrest. The prophecy's echo hummed in Isara's staff, its sigils glowing faintly in the waking light. The castle settled into a hush of worn-out triumph. Sentries patrolled the ramparts while healers moved like gentle ghosts through corridors, murmuring comforts to the wounded. Inside the infirmary, lanterns burned low. Raven drifted in and out of shallow sleep, her daughters dozing between her and Lucian. Every time Liana's hand twitched or Leora released a sleepy whimper, Lucian stirred, soothing them with a fingertip or soft hum before exhaustion reclaimed him. Outside the door, Kieran stood beside Ella. They alternated between quiet conversation and silence, each lost in swirling thoughts. Kieran's bond with Raven had eased, a dull ache replacing the sharp stabs of labor pain. But every faint sound from the room still made him tense. Ella slipped her fingers through his. "They're safe," she whispered. Kieran exhaled, gaze distant. "For now. Prophecies have a way of complicating peace." Ella squeezed his hand. "Then we'll meet complications together, as always." Further down the corridor, Thalos sat on a bench, shoulder freshly bandaged. The candle near him cast a faint glow on the staff Isara had propped against the wall while she prepared her draft. Its spiral glyphs shimmered whenever shadows flickered. Thalos studied the staff, then the doorway Isara had entered moments before. Unease and anticipation tangled in his chest, emotions he hadn't felt in years. Darius hobbled to the bench, settling beside him with a grunt. Bruises darkened his jaw, but his eyes remained alert. "Pain keeping you awake?" "Among other things," Thalos muttered, gaze still fixed on the staff. Darius followed his line of sight. "She is interesting." "That's one word." Thalos shifted, wincing. "When she looked at me, I felt as if something I'd forgotten suddenly remembered me." Darius chuckled softly. "A very poetic way to say she might be your mate." Thalos's stoic veneer cracked into a rueful smile. "I thought my chance had passed." "Seems the fates disagree." Darius rested an elbow on his knee. "Take it. You deserve a life beyond the sword." Thalos looked at him, reading layered regret in the set of Darius's shoulders. "So do you." Darius didn't deny it, he merely nodded, eyes drifting toward the infirmary. "First, we guard theirs." Footsteps echoed. Isara emerged from a side chamber carrying a small clay bowl of steaming liquid. She hesitated upon seeing Thalos and Darius, then offered a polite nod. "Queen Raven needs to drink this soon." Her gaze lingered on Thalos. He rose despite the dull throb in his arm. "I'll help," he said, voice unexpectedly hoarse. Isara's lips curved in a gentle acknowledgement. Together they walked the short distance to the doorway. Darius watched them go, a faint smile lifting one corner of his mouth before he pushed to his feet and resumed patrol. Inside, Lucian roused as Isara approached. She set the bowl on a nearby tray. "A blend of motherwort, red raspberry leaf, and moon-kissed nettle," she explained, "to mend what the battle and birth have strained." Lucian nodded his thanks. He propped Raven slightly and she blinked awake, exhaustion clouding her features. Isara's eyes softened. "Drink slowly," she urged. Raven sipped the earthy brew, grimacing at the bitterness. "How did you know to come tonight?" she whispered. "The winds carried word of fire and fate." Isara glanced at the window where dawn glowed. "An old promise brought me." Thalos hovered close, eyes trained on Raven yet acutely aware of Isara's nearness. Raven finished the draft, coughing lightly, and Lucian eased her back. "Thank you," he said to Isara. The shaman inclined her head. "Rest will complete what herbs begin." She turned to Thalos. "Walk with me when you can." Thalos nodded, throat tight. She left quietly. He lingered another moment, meeting Lucian's gaze. The king gave a subtle nod. "Go." In the outer corridor, Isara leaned on her staff, waiting. Thalos approached, heart thumping with absurd nervousness. "I wasn't sure you'd remain." "I wasn't sure you'd follow," she countered, a playful glint in her pale eyes. "Yet here we are." He bowed slightly. "I'm no smooth-tongued courtier. I'm not certain what to say." "You need not say anything." She reached, tracing a fingertip down his wounded arm. Warmth spread through the muscle. "Pain dulls the senses. Let this ease first." A shiver coursed through him, not entirely from her healing touch. "You are my mate." The words escaped on a breath. "Yes," she answered simply. "A second chance for us both." He searched her face. "Do you accept it?" Isara's smile was tinged with sadness and wonder. "I thought my path ended in solitude, but the spirits clearly disagree. So I accept. If you do." Thalos's answer was a quiet, heartfelt yes. No flourish, no grand gesture, only the certainty he'd waited a lifetime to feel. Isara rested her forehead against his uninjured shoulder. In that quiet intersection of old souls, the world's chaos faded. Footfalls behind them signaled new arrival. Kieran approached, a soft smile breaking through his fatigue. "I see congratulations are in order." Thalos flushed, ducking his head. Isara's laughter was like wind chimes. "Thank you, Alpha," she said. Kieran nodded toward the infirmary. "Raven and the girls are resting. Lucian finally looks less like a hunted stag." His tone sobered. "Your presence is a gift to them, to all of us." Isara's expression grew thoughtful. "Keep watch over the borderlands. Shadows stir even in victory's wake." She squeezed Thalos's hand, then drifted down the corridor, leaving the two males in reflective silence. Kieran clapped Thalos's good shoulder lightly. "Rest, heal. Life has decided it still has surprises for you." Thalos gave a rare grin. "Seems so." Kieran returned to Ella, who now sat beside Raven, a silver comb sliding through Liana's wisps of hair. Liana blinked up, mouth rounding in a soundless query. Ella chuckled softly. "You have your mother's eyes." Lucian stood on the balcony, leaning heavily on the stone balustrade. The sunrise stained the sky, blush, peach, gold. Kieran joined him, both silent for long moments. Lucian finally spoke. "I thought I might lose everything last night." "I felt it," Kieran replied, "but you didn't. They're here." He nodded toward the cot inside. Lucian exhaled, voice rough. "Where do we go now? A prophecy speaks of peace, but there will be those who resent what these girls represent." "Then we build stronger walls of unity," Kieran said. "Ella and I will return south once we're certain Raven is safe. We'll prepare our packs for cooperation." Lucian's shoulders eased. "And Cedric?" "Guarded but alive," Kieran answered. "He will stand judgment once Raven recovers." Lucian's gaze hardened. "He threatened my mate and children. Judgment will be swift." Even so, sadness edged his tone. Kieran clapped his back. "First be a father. We'll handle the rest together." Inside, Darius leaned against a pillar watching the twins sleep. He thought of the wars fought, the brothers lost, the sacrifices made to secure this fragile dawn. A promise stirred in his chest. "I will guard them. I will not fail this family." Night returned sooner than any of them wished. The castle breathed a slower rhythm. Soft footsteps, muted voices, Lullabies. Ella hummed while Raven drifted in and out of sleep. Lucian stayed close, carefully learning every sound his daughters made. Liana squeaked when hungry. Leora sighed when dreaming, both calmed when his finger brushed across their cheeks. In a quiet hour, Raven woke to find Lucian gazing at the twins. She touched his arm. "What are you thinking?" He smiled, eyes shining in lamplight. "That I've never seen anything more perfect." Raven rested her head on his shoulder. "I'm terrified," she confessed. "Of failing them. Of this prophecy. Changing everything." Lucian kissed her hair. "We'll raise them the best we can with love, truth, and strength. Whatever destiny waits, they will meet it prepared." Raven traced Leora's tiny ear. "Liana and Leora, flame and dawn." She chuckled softly. "They already feel larger than life." He wrapped an arm around her. So did their mother. His voice cracked on a tender laugh. Raven inhaled, savoring his warmth. "Promise me something." "Anything. Promise you'll remind me of this quiet when storms come." Lucian tilted her chin up, kissing her lips. "I promise." Outside the window, a sliver of moon rose. On the courtyard wall, Thalos stood shoulder to shoulder with Darius. Below them, patrol torches flickered. Isara stepped onto the battlements a short distance away, her staff catching moonbeams. She lifted her gaze to the stars, murmuring in an ancient tongue. The wind curled around her robes, carrying ash-scented whispers beyond the castle. Thalos felt the stir, turning toward her. Their eyes met across the stones, an unspoken assurance. Together, they would face whatever lingered in the dark. Isara's voice drifted on the breeze, too quiet for mortal ears but vibrant in the realm of spirit. "Light has risen, but night is patient." She lowered her staff, its glyphs fading to slumber, and walked back toward the inner gates. Thalos watched until she disappeared. In the infirmary, Lucian settled back beside Raven, drawing a blanket over their daughters. The castle lay peaceful for the first time in what felt like years. Yet somewhere beyond the walls, unseen threads of fate tightened, weaving possibilities neither love nor prophecy could yet fathom. Raven traced circles on Liana's back, eyelids heavy. "They'll dream tonight." Lucian nuzzled her hair. "And tomorrow, they'll wake to a kingdom guarding every breath they take." He kissed her softly, sealing the promise. In the hush that followed, the twins stirred, tiny fingers curling around their parents' hands. 4 heartbeats united against the vast unknown. Far above, clouds drifted across the moon, and for one still moment, all was balanced on the cusp of promise and peril, love and legacy, dawn and darkness. The shaman's words lingered like starlight on stone, foretelling journeys yet begun, while within the warm cradle of family, 2 new flames flickered to life, ready to burn their path through history. The twins settled at last into dream-heavy stillness, breaths fluttering like moth wings. Raven's own eyelids drooped, but she fought sleep, entranced by the rise and fall of those tiny chests. Lucian watched her watch them, memorizing the soft wonder shaping her face. He traced idle circles on the back of her hand. "Rest," he urged in a whisper. "The kingdom can survive a few hours without its queen." Raven shook her head, smiling faintly. "Not yet. I want to remember this. Every detail." She brushed Liana's cheek with a knuckle, then Leora's. "Do you hear them, Lucian? Their heartbeats? They're so steady." He leaned close, placing an ear near the bundled blankets. The soft, syncopated thumps filled him with a fierce protectiveness that left no room for fear. "I hear future drumbeats," he murmured, a cadence strong enough to rally armies. "Spoken like a king." She nudged him playfully. "But I'm glad, because I'm suddenly very tired." He eased her against the pillows. "Sleep, I'll stand watch." But before rest claimed them, the door creaked open. Kieran slipped inside with Ella, both carrying trays of broth and barley cakes. "Knew you two would forget to eat," Ella said, setting the food on a side table. Lucian's stomach tightened with hunger, but he stayed beside Raven. Ella rolled her eyes fondly, spooned warm broth, and handed it to him. "Feed her first." Lucian obeyed. Raven accepted sips between yawns. Kieran watched from the foot of the bed, arms folded, his earlier tension softened to contentment. Then his expression shifted, an echo of awe tinged with something deeper. "You feel them too," Raven said, recognizing the peculiar glow in her twin's eyes. He nodded. "Their presence resonates like little sparks in the center of my chest." He gave a low laugh. "They'll be unstoppable." Ella rested her chin on Kieran's shoulder. "They'll have an uncle and aunt who spoil them rotten." Raven chuckled, though exhaustion blurred her vision. "We'll hold you to that, especially during midnight feedings." Kieran bowed theatrically. "At your service, my queen. My sister." Ella squeezed his waist. "Come, let them rest." They withdrew, closing the door with a soft click. Lucian set aside the empty bowl and pulled the blankets higher around Raven. Minutes later, Lyanna stirred, lips searching. Raven shifted automatically, guiding the infant to nurse. Lucian propped pillows behind her, adjusting the lantern to a warmer glow. Watching mother and child linked so seamlessly, he felt an ache of reverence so intense it bordered on pain. When both girls had suckled and drifted off again, Lucian carried them to a crib carved of white ash and inlaid with silver ivy, gifted months earlier by southern artisans. He laid the twins down gently, one on either side, tucked warm wraps around them, then returned to Raven's side. She finally surrendered to sleep, features smoothing, lips parted in a silent thank you. Lucian's gaze lingered on her until the rhythm of her breathing deepened. Only then did he step onto the balcony for air. Night had bled fully into pale dawn. A watercolor horizon hinted at lilac and gold. Kieran leaned on the opposite parapet, eyes intent on the courtyard's slow stirrings. Lucian joined him. Together they watched sentries exchange morning salutes, smiths rekindle forge fires, and stable hands lead tired mounts to water. "I keep expecting another horn blast," Kieran said quietly. "So do I." Lucian exhaled, shoulders sagging. "But this hush feels earned." Kieran's gaze drifted skyward. "Do you trust Isara's prophecy?" Lucian considered. "I trust her sincerity. And I trust that whatever future these girls claim, they won't face it alone." He eyed Kieran. "You felt the magic. It singled them out, but it wrapped the rest of us around them, too." Kieran nodded. "Then we prepare south and north alike." They lingered until torches sputtered out and sunrise gilded the battlements. Inside, Darius paced the corridor, stiffness accentuating each step. He paused at the nursery doorway, watching Lyanna and Leora twitch in sleep. A smile tugged his lips, an expression so rare it startled him. Tenderness, he thought long buried, surfaced without warning. He vowed silently to become more than a sword for hire. He would be a guardian, worthy of their trust. He sensed movement and turned to see Ella approach. She pressed a hand to his forearm. "Thank you for standing guard all night." Darius shrugged, but his eyes shone. "Some things are worth losing sleep over." Ella's smile widened. "Rest soon. We need you healthy." She glanced at the sleeping twins. "They'll need stories of your bravery." "That'll be Lucian's specialty." Darius chuckled. "I'm better in the margins." Ella tilted her head. "Heroes don't always stand in the center, but their presence holds the world up. Remember that." As Ella drifted off to find breakfast for the household, Darius turned back to the infants, letting her words kindle a warmth he hadn't felt in years. Down in the training yard, Thalos moved through slow drills to test his healing shoulder. Sweat beaded along his brow even in the cool morning air. Isara watched from a low stone bench, sipping an infusion of juniper and clover. She'd offered to speed his healing with another spell, but Thalos insisted on feeling the edges of his mortal limits. "You court pain," she observed gently. "I court purpose, he corrected, then winced as his blade overextended. She rose, set the cup aside, and approached. With a light touch to his elbow, she guided the sword lower, aligning posture and breath. "Purpose, she murmured, does not require punishment." Their eyes met, and a hush fell. In that instant, the bond shimmered, aged, tempered, but undeniable. Thalos lowered the blade. "Teach me the balance, then." Isara's answering smile was quiet and bright. "I will, if you teach me to live among wolves again." They lingered in companionable silence, morning sun catching motes of dust in the air. For Thalos, the weight of years spent alone suddenly felt lighter. When the sun climbed higher, Lucian summoned the inner circle to the great hall for a subdued breakfast. Raven, pale but serene, entered on his arm, the twins in a double sling across his chest. A collective hush descended. Warriors, council members, stable boys all rose. Raven offered a soft smile. "Please sit. You've earned your bread." Even Isara inclined her head. She took a seat beside Thalos, who helped her settle. Lucian stood at the head of the long table. "We fought bravely. We bled. And in our darkest hour, life prevailed." He touched a gentle palm to Liana's back. "Our daughters represent more than lineage. They are hope. We will shield that hope with everything we are." Kieran lifted his mug. To Liana and Leora, tiny warriors. The hall erupted in a chorus of hear, hear, and fist-to-chest salutes. Raven laughed softly, the sound easing knots of tension in everyone present. Breakfast unfolded with hushed excitement, the clatter of dishes softened by newborn coos. Raven and Lucian fed small bites to each other between checks on the twins. Ella coached Raven on herbal tonics for recovery. Darius outlined a rotating guard schedule to keep threats at bay, without exhausting soldiers. Afterward, Raven and Lucian slipped to the garden for fresh air. Dew glittered on late blooms. Raven song lilacs, planted when Raven first accepted her crown, perfumed the breeze. Raven breathed deeply. "I used to dream of this garden while sleeping on forest floors." Lucian brushed a petal from her sleeve. "And now it blooms for you." She leaned into him. "The prophecy frightens me, Lucian. What mother willingly accepts her daughters will one day leave." He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "My heart clenches at the thought. But we'll have years before that path opens. We'll fill those years with laughter and stories and lessons. They'll walk into fate strong, free, and unafraid." Raven traced the twin rings of silver and ash wood on his finger. "We'll show them love that never falters." He nodded. "And unity that doesn't break." Their kiss tasted of lilac dew and quiet promises. Behind a breezeway arch, Isara paused with Thalos. She angled her head, listening to ravens calling overhead. "Storms gather beyond the horizon," she said softly. Thalos followed her gaze. "Will they come for the girls?" "Some forces will," Isara said, "but darkness seldom marches alone. Allies wait in places we cannot see." She turned to him. "And if we walk together, our light doubles." He reached for her hand, marveling at the ease of that gesture. "Then let's walk." Evening painted the sky in amber strokes when the castle fell silent again. Raven lay in the nursery, rocking Liana while Lucian walked a restless Leora across his shoulder. Candlelight flickered against muraled walls, painted wolves, howling beneath silver moons, symbolizing kinship across clans. Raven hushed Liana with a lullaby her mother once sang, words now tinged with the new hope of twin destinies. Lucian watched, heart expanding with each note. He whispered when the song ended, "I never believed I could love this much." "Then you were wise not to dream too small," Raven replied, eyes glittering. because our love has only begun to unfold." They laid their daughters side by side, each girl's tiny hand finding the other's. Raven and Lucian sat on a cushioned bench, shoulders touching. A cool breath of wind slipped through the cracked window, stirring candle flames. Raven shivered. Lucian drew her closer, gaze narrowing to the shadows beyond the glass. In the courtyard, Isara stood alone with her staff, moonlight threading silver through her hair. She whispered ancient words, and the sigils along the shaft glimmered. High above, clouds drifted aside, revealing a constellation shaped like twins, clasping hands, the omen of united realms. Isara's eyes glowed faintly. "Guard them, spirits," she murmured. "Guard them until the hour of convergence." Her words vanished on the wind, but the promise lingered, carried to distant forests where other fates prepared to entwine. Inside, Raven drifted towards sleep, warmed by Lucian's arm. He pressed a kiss to her crown. "Tomorrow we begin anew," he murmured. "Tomorrow," she echoed, eyes closing. The twins exhaled soft, simultaneous breaths. In that lullaby hush, hope rooted deeper than ever, nurtured by love, guarded by loyalty, shielded by prophecy. For now, peace reigned in the Lycan kingdom, fragile yet radiant, ready to face the unknown dawn.